There's a bird out there with a tail that drags across the ground like a wedding veil made of sapphire and emerald. Another spreads wings covered in hundreds of shimmering eye-like spots that seem to watch you from every angle. And one, pure white from beak to tail feather, looks less like a living bird and more like something God carved out of fresh snow. 15 birds, 15 masterpieces. And number 1 holds a display so breathtaking it has inspired art, mythology, and royalty for over 4,000 years. Let's go. Position 15. Bulwer's pheasant. The Borneo ghost with a white tail so dramatic it doesn't look real. The male Bulwer's pheasant has a tail that stretches over 3 feet long, pure white, dramatically fanned, and held completely upright during courtship in a way that looks physically impossible for a bird this size. Found only in the rainforests of Borneo, this is one of the most visually extreme pheasants on Earth and one of the least known. It stands around 30 inches tall, weighs roughly 4.5 pounds, and carries deep reddish-brown and black feathers that make that white tail an even more dramatic contrast. But here's what makes it genuinely jaw-dropping. During courtship, the male's facial wattles turn a vivid electric blue. Deep reddish body, blazing blue face, towering white tail, all at once. God clearly had a creative moment when he designed this one. The Bulwer's pheasant is classified as vulnerable by the IUCN, with habitat loss in Borneo reducing populations significantly over the past 3 decades. Fewer than 10,000 are estimated to remain in the wild today. In 2018, a male photographed mid-display at a wildlife sanctuary in Malaysia went viral after ornithologists called it one of the most dramatic courtship performances ever captured on camera. Have you ever seen a bird with a tail like that? Can you imagine stumbling across this display deep in a rainforest? Comment below if you'd even heard of the Bulwer's pheasant before today. Position 14. Congo peacock. Africa's secret peacock that Western science didn't know existed until 1936. Imagine a peacock that evolved in complete isolation, hidden so deep inside the Congo basin that Western science didn't even know it existed until less than a century ago. That's the Congo peacock, Africa's only true peacock, and still one of the least studied large birds on Earth. Unlike its Asian relatives, the Congo peacock doesn't carry an elaborate fantail. The male has deep blue-green and violet plumage with a distinctive white crown tuft that stands straight up like a natural headdress. The female is one of the few peahen-type birds genuinely beautiful in her own right. Rich chestnut brown with metallic green iridescence across her back. It lives exclusively in the lowland rainforests of the Democratic Republic of Congo, stands around 24 inches tall, and weighs between 3 and 4.5 pounds. Its remote habitat has made field research nearly impossible. Can you believe a bird this striking went completely undocumented by science until the 20th century? Have you ever imagined that an entirely unknown peacock species was hiding in Africa all along? In 2020, a conservation survey confirmed that habitat destruction had reduced the species to a fraction of its historical range, prompting its immediate uplisting to vulnerable status by international wildlife organizations. Tag someone who had absolutely no idea Africa had its own peacock species. Position 13. Bornean peacock pheasant. The living mosaic covered in dozens of shimmering eyes from head to tail. Dozens of iridescent eye-like spots, called ocelli, covering the entire body. Wings, back, tail, all of it. Every single one perfectly symmetrical. Every single one shimmering blue-green when the light hits just right. Would you believe a bird this intricate lives so deep in Borneo's forests that most wildlife researchers have never seen one in the wild? Can you imagine what it actually looks like when those wings open? Found exclusively in the lowland and foothill forests of Borneo, the Bornean peacock pheasant is one of the rarest peacock pheasants alive today. The male stands around 20 inches tall, weighs roughly 1.5 pounds, and carries a metallic blue-green face with bare red skin around the eyes. A small bird that somehow looks like it was painted by hand. What most people don't realize is that each ocellus isn't just decorative. During courtship, The male positions his body to maximize light reflection, turning those eye spots into a shimmering, hypnotic display that researchers have described as one of the most extraordinary performances in the entire bird world. In 2022, camera trap footage of a wild male displaying in Borneo was featured by the BBC as proof of how little science still understands about this island's most secretive species. Share this with someone who loves birds, because this one genuinely looks unreal. Position 12. Blood pheasant. The Himalayan bird with a name as dramatic as its appearance. The name alone should tell you something. Blood pheasant, named not for violence, but for the vivid crimson streaks splashed across its chest and face like brushstrokes from a painting that someone couldn't quite finish. Found in the high-altitude forests of the Himalayas, across Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, and parts of China, the blood pheasant lives at elevations between 7,000 and 15,000 feet, places where most birds simply couldn't survive. It stands around 17 inches tall, weighs roughly 1 pound, and carries a body covered in soft gray-green feathers dramatically interrupted by those striking red and crimson markings on the chest, crest, and around the eyes. But here's what genuinely surprises most people. Unlike many pheasant species, the blood pheasant travels in flocks of up to 30 individuals, moving through alpine bamboo forests and rhododendron thickets in tight groups, their red markings flashing through the mist like scattered embers. The creator packed serious visual drama into a bird most people will never see in person. Drop a like if this one completely surprised you. Position 11. Albino peacock. The snow-white vision that looks like God pressed pause on color and forgot to press play again. A peacock already stops people in their tracks. But an albino peacock? People don't just stop. They stand absolutely still, completely silent, and stare. The albino peacock carries a complete absence of melanin, the pigment responsible for the explosive blues, greens, and golds of a standard peacock's plumage. What remains is a bird entirely covered in pure snow-white feathers, with pale pink eyes and a train that fans out into hundreds of white ocelli. Eye spots still perfectly formed, still shimmering, just drained of every drop of color. The result is breathtaking in a way that's almost impossible to describe until you've seen it. The odds of a peacock being born albino are estimated at roughly 1 in 10,000. And because albinism can cause vision problems and increase sensitivity to sunlight, most albino peacocks live in controlled environments rather than the wild. Comment if the albino peacock is your favorite on this list so far. Position 10. Elliot's pheasant. The Chinese mountain jewel that carries one of the most dramatic tail patterns in the entire bird kingdom. Most people could name a single Chinese pheasant species, but if they saw Elliot's pheasant just once, they'd never forget it. The male carries a tail that reaches over 24 inches long, banded in crisp, alternating stripes of white and rich chestnut brown, set against a body of deep reddish brown, white, and black. It's a color combination that looks almost too precise to be natural, like someone laid it out with a ruler. Found exclusively in the mountain forests of southeastern China, Elliot's pheasant stands around 30 inches tall, weighs between 2 and 3 pounds, and has been documented at elevations up to 6,000 feet. The female is far more understated, warm brown tones with subtle patterning, making the male's display all the more dramatic by contrast. Now here's the part that stops most people cold. Elliot's pheasant is classified as near threatened, with wild populations estimated at fewer than 10,000 individuals. Habitat loss and hunting pressure in its limited Chinese range have pushed it steadily toward vulnerable status. What most people don't know is that this species was named after Daniel Giroux Elliott, the American ornithologist who first formally described it in 1872, over 150 years ago, and it still hasn't received the global attention it deserves. Can you believe a bird this visually extraordinary remains this unknown outside of China? Would you have recognized it as a pheasant just from looking at it? Tag someone who loves rare birds, because this one needs more attention. Position 9. Palawan peacock pheasant. The Philippine island masterpiece that UNESCO helped protect before it was too late. Here's a question most bird lovers get wrong. Which country outside of India and Africa has its own peacock-type bird found nowhere else on Earth? The Philippines, specifically one island, Palawan, and the bird is one of the most visually extraordinary pheasants alive. The male Palawan peacock pheasant carries an iridescent blue-green crest that fans upward like a crown, a face framed in vivid white and black markings, and a tail covered in large metallic ocelli that shimmer with every movement. It stands around 20 inches tall, weighs around 1.5 pounds, and moves through Palawan's lowland forest with the quiet confidence of an animal that has no natural competition on its island. What makes this species genuinely remarkable is its cultural significance. The Palawan peacock pheasant is considered a symbol of natural heritage on Palawan, an island itself designated a UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve in 1992. Conservation of the bird and conservation of the island are inseparable conversations in the Philippines. In 2019, a wildlife survey confirmed stable breeding populations in protected areas of northern Palawan, a rare piece of genuinely good conservation news for a species that had been declining for decades. Isn't it incredible how God placed one of the most beautiful birds alive on one specific island and nowhere else? Can you imagine seeing that crest fan open in the wild? Comment if you'd ever add Palawan to your travel list just to see this bird. Position 8. Royal Palm Turkey, the American breed that turned a farm bird into a living work of art. Most people hear the word turkey and picture Thanksgiving. Brown, heavy, ordinary. Then they see the Royal Palm Turkey, and that image changes completely. Sharp white feathers edged in glossy black, arranged in a pattern so clean and precise, it looks like it was designed by a graphic artist rather than produced by genetics. A fantail that opens in a perfect semicircle of contrasting black and white. Bright red and blue facial skin that shifts color depending on the bird's mood. This is a turkey that doesn't apologize for existing. The Royal Palm was developed in the United States in the 1920s from a chance pairing of black, bronze, Narragansett, and native wild turkeys. It stands around 30 inches tall, weighs between 10 and 16 pounds, and is classified as a heritage breed, one of the rarest turkey varieties in North America today. The American Livestock Breeds Conservancy lists the Royal Palm on its watch list, with fewer than 5,000 breeding birds remaining in the United States. Its numbers dropped so sharply in the late 20th century that dedicated conservation breeding programs were launched specifically to save it. In 2015, a Royal Palm flock kept by a heritage farm in Vermont was featured in a Smithsonian Magazine article as one of the finest examples of American livestock preservation in modern history. Would you have guessed a turkey could look like this? Isn't it wild that one of America's rarest birds is a turkey? Share this with someone who thinks they know everything about birds, because this one will absolutely catch them off guard. Position 7. Ocellated turkey, the jeweled Mexican bird that makes every other turkey look completely unfinished. Forget everything you thought you knew about turkeys. The ocellated turkey, found only in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, Belize, and northern Guatemala, looks less like a turkey and more like someone combined a peacock, a jewel beetle, and a tropical sunset into one single bird. Its body feathers are an iridescent mix of bronze, green, and blue that shifts color with every angle of light, and each tail feather ends in a vivid eye spot of bright blue and bronze. The bare skin on its head and neck is electric blue, dotted with bright orange and red nodules. It is the most visually elaborate turkey species that has ever existed anywhere on Earth. And here's where it gets wild. The ocellated turkey produces no gobble. Instead, it sings, a melodic, multi-note call that echoes through Yucatan forests at dawn and sounds nothing like any other turkey alive. Ancient Maya civilization revered it and feature it prominently in temple art and religious ceremonies. In 2021, wildlife researchers confirmed that ocellated turkey populations had declined by over 50% in unprotected areas of the Yucatan over the previous 2 decades, largely due to habitat loss and hunting. Can you believe this bird exists and most people have never heard of it? Isn't this proof that God saved some of his most extravagant designs for the places tourists rarely visit? Drop a like if the ocellated turkey just completely changed your idea of what a turkey can look like. Position 6. Silver pheasant. The ancient Chinese symbol of grace that has inspired artists and emperors for over 2,000 years. In ancient China, the silver pheasant was not just a bird. It was a symbol of rank, power, and divine order. Embroidered onto the robes of civil officials and featured in imperial court paintings for over 2,000 years. Looking at the male, it's not hard to understand why. Pure white upper parts covered in an intricate web of fine black lines, like lace woven into feathers, set against a deep blue-black face, chest, and crest. A long white tail that streams behind it as it moves through the forest. It stands around 30 inches tall, weighs between 3 and 4.5 pounds, and moves with a composure that genuinely looks regal. Found across the forests of southern China and Southeast Asia, the silver pheasant adapts well to forested mountain terrain and has been kept in ornamental aviaries by Chinese nobility since at least the Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years ago. It was one of the first Asian pheasant species to reach European aviaries in the 18th century, where it became an immediate sensation among aristocratic collectors. In 2023, a pair of silver pheasants in a private European collection sold at auction for €12,000, nearly a century after the species first arrived on the continent. Isn't it something that God designed a bird so precise and elegant that human artists spent 2,000 years trying to replicate it? Have you ever seen those fine black lines on white feathers up close? Comment if this is your pick for the most elegant bird on this list. Position 5. Great Argus pheasant. The bird with the largest display feathers of any bird on Earth, by far. The great Argus pheasant has secondary wing feathers that reach over 4 feet in length, the longest wing feathers of any bird species on the planet. And when it spreads them in a full courtship display, it creates a circular fan of thousands of three-dimensional eye spots, so perfectly rendered they look almost painted by hand. Found in the lowland and hilly rainforests of Borneo, Sumatra, and the Malay Peninsula, the great Argus stands around 6 feet from beak to tail in full plumage and weighs between 4 and 7 pounds. It clears a dedicated forest floor stage, sweeping leaves and debris away with its wings, then calls from that same spot every single morning until a female arrives. Now get ready for this. Each eye spot on those wing feathers creates a perfect three-dimensional sphere illusion, shaded and highlighted in exactly the right positions to make the spot appear to physically pop out of the feather. Charles Darwin was so stunned by this feature that he dedicated several pages of his book The Descent of Man to analyzing how a bird could produce something this visually precise. What blows everyone's mind is that a bird this extraordinary lives almost entirely unseen, deep in forests most humans will never enter. Can you imagine Charles Darwin being personally stunned by a bird's feathers? Isn't it incredible how God built a three-dimensional illusion into a living wing? Just wait until you see what's still to come, because the last 3 are on another level entirely. Position 4. Lady Amherst pheasant. The living Chinese painting with a cape that looks hand-embroidered by God himself. What if a bird looked like it was wearing a handcrafted ceremonial cape? White feathers edged in perfect black scaling, like the finest silk embroidery you've ever seen. That's exactly what the Lady Amherst pheasant wears. Every single day, just because God felt like it. Native to the mountain forests of southwestern China and Myanmar, this species stands around 4.5 feet, including the tail, which alone stretches over 2.5 feet and weighs between 2 and 3 pounds. The male's head is covered in metallic green and red, the chest in that extraordinary scaled white and black cape, and the tail in bold white and dark red bars that stream behind it as it moves. The female, predictably, is a warm brown, making the male's appearance even more impossible by comparison. Named after Sarah Amherst, wife of the Governor-General of India, who sent the first specimen to London in 1828, the bird caused immediate sensation among British naturalists who refused to believe it was real until they held it in their hands. In 2020, a male Lady Amherst pheasant photographed in a private aviary in the Netherlands was described by 3 independent ornithologists as the single most visually complex bird they had ever personally seen. Would you have believed a bird like this existed if someone had described it without showing you a photo? Can you imagine being the first Western scientist to unwrap that specimen crate? Tag someone who needs to see this cape right now. Position 3. Golden pheasant. The flaming Chinese legend that inspired centuries of imperial art and still stops people cold. The golden pheasant doesn't walk into a room. It arrives, blazing orange and gold crown fanning upward like a flame. Cape of black-edged orange feathers that fan open during courtship like a folding fan made of living fire. Crimson body, golden rump, long bar tail. The male golden pheasant is, by almost any measure, the most explosively colorful pheasant alive, and it comes from the mountain forests of central China, where it has inspired imperial art, mythology, and cultural symbolism for over 2,000 years. It stands around 3.5 feet, including the tail, weighs between 1.5 and 2 pounds, and is surprisingly secretive in the wild. Far more often heard than seen despite those colors that look like they belong on a stage under spotlights. Here's the most fascinating thing. The golden pheasant was one of the first Chinese birds to reach European collections. King George III of England kept a pair at Kew Gardens in the 1700s, and records show that visitors came from across Britain specifically to see them. In 2022, a golden pheasant at a wildlife park in Japan was filmed mid-courtship display. The video hit 40 million views in 4 days. The comments all said the same thing. People thought it was CGI. Isn't it incredible that something this vivid exists naturally? Have you ever seen those colors on a living bird? Share this if the golden pheasant is the most beautiful bird you've seen on this entire list so far. Position 2. Green peacock, the wilder, rarer, and more dangerous cousin that most people have never even heard of. Most people know one peacock, the blue one, the familiar one, the one on every nature documentary ever made. But the green peacock, the one that actually comes from the jungles of Southeast Asia, is bigger, rarer, and by many expert opinions, even more breathtaking. The male green peacock stands over 9 feet from beak to tail tip, making it one of the longest birds on Earth by total body length. Its train feathers are a deeper, more complex metallic green than its Indian relative, with individual feathers showing layers of bronze, blue, and gold that shift dramatically depending on the light. The crest, rather than the blue peacock's fan-shaped tuft, is a tight cluster of straight green feathers edged in gold that stands permanently upright, giving it a permanently alert and regal appearance. And here's where most people get genuinely surprised. The green peacock is far more aggressive than its Indian cousin. Wildlife handlers consistently describe it as one of the most challenging large birds to work with, territorial, fast, and completely unintimidated by humans. Classified as endangered by the IUCN, wild populations have declined by over 50% over the past 3 decades due to hunting and habitat loss across Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Can you believe something this magnificent is on the endangered list, while most people don't even know it exists? Isn't it wild that the rarer peacock is actually the more stunning one? Don't miss number 1. Because after everything you've seen on this list, it still delivers something extraordinary. Position 1. Asian peacock, the living masterpiece that has symbolized divine beauty across every major civilization on Earth. 4,000 years of recorded history. Every major civilization that ever encountered this bird, ancient India, Persia, Greece, Rome, China, the Ottoman Empire, responded the same way. They called it divine. Not beautiful, not impressive, divine. The Indian blue peacock, the Asian peacock, is arguably the most recognized and celebrated bird in human history. The male stands between 6 and 7.5 feet, including the train, weighs between 8 and 13 pounds, and carries a tail of up to 200 elongated feathers, each ending in that extraordinary iridescent eye spot of blue, green, bronze, and gold that shifts color with every degree of movement. That tail accounts for 60% of the bird's total length. And raising it into a full display, hundreds of shimmering eyes catching the light simultaneously in a perfect semicircle, remains one of the most breathtaking sights the natural world has ever produced. But here's the fact that still stuns scientists today. Those colors aren't pigment. There is no blue or green dye in those feathers. The color is entirely structural, created by microscopic crystal-like structures that manipulate light wavelengths to produce those impossible iridescent hues. God didn't just create a beautiful bird. He engineered it at a microscopic level to be beautiful in a way no amount of paint could ever replicate. In Hindu tradition, the peacock is the vehicle of Sarasvati, goddess of wisdom, and its feathers are considered sacred. In Christianity, the eye spots have symbolized the all-seeing God for centuries. In ancient Persia, peacocks flanked the throne of kings. Isn't it something that one bird united every human civilization in the same reaction of pure wonder? Can you think of any other animal that has done that? This is hands down the most celebrated bird god ever created. And after everything on this list, there was never any other choice for number one. So guys, which of these 15 birds blew your mind the most? From the ghostly white tail of the Bulwer's pheasant to the 4,000-year legacy of the Asian peacock, every single bird on this list is living proof that God's creativity has absolutely no limits. Whether it's the fire-colored golden pheasant, the jeweled ocellated turkey, or the albino peacock dressed entirely in white, the Creator packed more beauty into these birds than most of us will ever fully appreciate. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss what we bring you next. Comment below which bird was your favorite and what other animal topics you'd love to see here. Your feedback genuinely shapes everything we create. And if you haven't watched our last video yet, 15 unique animals with rare color patterns, go check it out right now. The link is in the description and on screen. Trust me, you will not regret it. The natural world never runs out of ways to amaze us. Until next time, guys, and thanks so much for watching.